Welcome to the CURES digital show and podcast where we explore the cutting edge of wellness. I'm Kara Sunderland. With the formula shortage expected to last till at least July, many women are wondering, are there any safe natural alternatives? And how can you increase your breast milk supply if you are breastfeeding? I'm joined by Dr. Artemis Morris. She's a naturopathic physician who runs the Artemis Wellness Center in Milford, Connecticut. Thanks for being with us, Doctor.
Thank you. Always a pleasure, Kara.
You know, the formula shortage has certainly just scared so many parents at a time where they don't need more stress. It's been difficult for people to find to find food for their babies. And for some women, formula has been the only option they've had. But you want to talk about two things, like some alternatives, and also if you are breastfeeding and you're struggling to make enough, there are things you can do.
Absolutely. And really, it feels like this is a time we need to ask ourselves, how do we support mothers best? So I have a few tips for you to share on that. And breast milk is certainly the best form of nutrition for babies, and it's a challenging thing for women. So we don't want to minimize that. There are services like La Leche League, midwives, there are many services to help with that. And there are some herbs and nutritional points to help increase breast milk supply, but we really need to support mothers a lot right now.
Yeah, especially stress doesn't help you. So one of the things that you want to do is minimize stress. And so you have some things that are tested that you use in your practice that have really helped women, including fennel, anise, fenugreek, and dandelion. Those are the four big ones you're using to help people.
Yes, I chose these because they're very safe and effective, and they could be used as food as medicine. So in terms of fennel, it's a very beautiful seed, and it's used a lot in Indian cooking, and you could even chew on the seeds. This is evidence-based medicine for helping with increased breast milk supply, generally about a teaspoon a day, or you can crush it and make it a tea. To make a tea, it's 1 teaspoon per cup of boiling water. So we've got fennel. It's got like a sweet taste to it. And it's also good for gas and colicky babies. So if you're including it, you're not only helping yourself, but you're also helping with some of the colic that a baby may experience. So we've got fennel. Fenugreek is something a lot of people have not heard of, probably. It is also a herb used a lot in Indian cooking, in Ayurvedic medicine. It's actually also good for blood sugar regulation, and you have to crush it really well. It's a little triangular to square-shaped seed. That one's good. And then there's anise, and you want to be careful with anise because anise can be called the same word for a couple of different herbs. So you want to get the very small, tiny licorice-tasting herb. It's basically called anise, like the anise pimpinella. And so that one's great. And the other really easy thing to do, especially now, is if you haven't sprayed your lawn, a really good place to go is literally just collect some of those dandelion leaves. And you can make them into a tea, but I like to eat them. And they're really great with olive oil and lemon juice. And you can cook them as you would spinach. And that can help also with breast milk, but also just help also to support the mother's detoxification system. It's good for blood sugar regulation. So those are some very simple, easy things to do. Fennel, fenugreek, anise, and dandelion leaves.
Yeah, and okay, so dandelion leaves, I know some people are like, oh, gross, I don't want to go in my yard, but they do sometimes sell them. If that seems strange to you, I know in Mediterranean cultures, it's very normal to have dandelion greens, and I think sometimes you do see them at the store. They say dandelion greens, and you just kind of mix them in with your salad.
You can. So you can absolutely eat them raw. They're very bitter, so be warned. So you only want to get them when they're little baby dandelion leaves, and make sure you know how to identify them, but they have that bright yellow flower. I have a lot of posts on wild plants on my Instagram, if that's one resource, but there's many resources for identifying wild edible plants. And you can get them at the grocery store, and you would cook them similar to how you would cook spinach. So you boil it and then simmer it, and of course, add extra virgin olive oil, a little bit of lemon juice, which is also high in vitamin C. And lemon juice, which is high in vitamin C, helps with iron absorption. So that's also good for a mom that is, anemic as well, and a little touch of sea salt. And it is absolutely delicious. It's really worth trying.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So we all know how to cook spinach like that. Just use your dandelion greens. Now, some women are already struggling, and if they're already breastfeeding, then great. If they have a great supply, wonderful. But you're trying to help the women who might be struggling. Maybe they're, supply and demand, but maybe they're trying to pump and they're just not making enough. How long will it take? What's the protocol to use these things to increase supply? And how do you know if it's working?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. And you mentioned earlier some of the other factors that play a role. So the herbs and the nutrition do help. There is evidence-based medicine. You want to definitely continue it for at least a couple of weeks, one teaspoon per cup of water. And the other thing that you want to keep in mind is just noticing for yourself what's happening. So if you just see what the changes are, but there's other things like having baby close to you. There's also, that stress reduction, but you would want to keep it up at least for a couple of weeks. And these are very safe herbs. So you don't really lose anything by trying them, but they can be extremely effective within a couple of weeks.
Can you take them as supplements?
You can as well take them as supplements. There are some supplements. You want to be very careful with supplements, especially during breastfeeding or pregnancy, because another really important point is there are toxins found in breast milk. And there's actually also toxins can be found in formula. So there's something called persistent organic pollutants, which is like pesticides and heavy metals. So breast milk, it's really important to eat proper nutrition, and those dandelion greens help to detoxify. So, this is the tricky part too, is really making sure you're having a clean diet so that your breast milk is low in toxins for the baby. But you can definitely also get them in supplements, but you want to really make sure they're organic. You want to have it generally recognized as safe. We do have a link through my website, drartemis.com, if you want to see the companies that I use. But really, when you're dealing with any herbs, especially during pregnancy or breastfeeding, make sure you consult with someone who really knows, but get an organic source for sure. And about 300 milligrams is used for the fennel and the anise sometimes.
Okay. And you talk about the La Leche League, which people can reach out to, and I think have heard of this before, and they can really help you learn everything you need to know for your body to increase. But what about, people are talking on the internet about buying breast milk. What's your take on that?
I think it's wonderful that, women throughout history have not been paid for all the things that we do, including child raising and many things. And then we have wet nurses throughout history. So, there is a growing demand, of course, for human breast milk. And there's actually a bank, the Human Breast Milk Bank. So you want to talk to La Leche League, you want to talk to your midwife, your OB-GYN about what is a good source to go to, because there are studies also looking at, because there's toxins in breast milk, you want to make sure you're getting good quality breast milk. So I think this is, definitely a growing trend, and it's wonderful that other women can help each other in this crisis. Yeah. Because there are some women that have too much and there's some women that have too little. So, it's a really wonderful alternative.
I've interviewed several pediatricians and folks, more conventional docs, and they're really warning against people trying to make homemade baby formula, because you can really come out of it the wrong ratios, or you can give the baby too much water, or it can be dangerous for the baby. But in the naturopathic world, are there any alternatives that your patients are using that you're finding safe?
So there are some very classic alternatives that have been used since the dawn of time. Even if you're into mythology, Zeus, which was the king of the gods in Greek mythology, he was raised on goat's milk. And I know when I go to Greece, when I had my kids, they were little, they would warm up some goat's milk. Sometimes they add a little sugar, but I wouldn't recommend that. And so there are other types of milks that can be used and that have been used throughout centuries. And actually goat's milk is higher even in some minerals like zinc and magnesium. So, definitely always consult with your midwife, with your pediatrician, certainly with La Leche League. But, really the goat's milk, even the sheep's milk, those have been used throughout centuries and are very safe and effective alternatives.
Anything else you want to let people know if they're struggling? We're hearing in the news that we're not going to see the supply return to normalcy until about mid-July. And obviously, it's become very apparent how dependent we are on one company for baby formula in this country. So that's something else to deal with. But it's still a little bit of a time where parents have been driving around for 2 hours trying to find, they have empty shelves. And especially for the women who are feeling really bad that for whatever reason they can't breastfeed or they haven't been able to breastfeed. And they're, they're feeling even worse because they're trying to do the best for their baby. Any other recommendations?
Yes, I think that, we really need to go back to nature. We need to realize how we can become self-sufficient as much as possible. And this is where, the right diet, some of these herbs that we talked about, the fennel, the dandelion, to help increase breast supply. But it's really about how do we support our mothers so that they can take care of the babies. And also using some of those alternatives. Let's go back to really good, sustainable, organic farming practices that integrate goats and sheep and different animals. So really, I think talking to a midwife, talking to people who know, like La Leche League, is really important. But I think, we have goat's milk is available in many places. And so always consult your doc, but it's a very safe and effective alternative. And you can get it at most supermarkets too. But, always consult with your doc, but it's been used for centuries.
Is it in a can or a bottle? I don't know. I've never bought it before.
So now you're going to go to the supermarket and be like, oh, there it is. It was there all along. I have a good friend that's what she gave her baby because she couldn't breastfeed after a certain period of time. And it was available at every supermarket pretty much. And there's some very safe brands. Quality is always an issue, right? So, but in times of old, that before there was formula available, and this is what people did. They shared. There was also these herbs, this knowledge of herbs, this knowledge of diet. There was less toxins, and using some of the the goat's milk, the sheep's milk, some of these alternative milks have been used for centuries, and it really reminds us of how important also treating our environment well is, because these toxins found in breast milk are also found in baby formula. So there was a study done last year that actually found baby formula was higher in some heavy metals like uranium and cadmium than breast milk. So I think we have a really great opportunity now to learn more about nature and our natural resources and really to help each other out.
That sounds like a good thought. And of course, you have people on your Instagram. People can follow you at Dr. Artemis. They can visit you at drartemis.com. If you're watching on WFSB Plus, it's on your screen right now. If you're listening on our podcast, we thank you. Please like and subscribe and share this information if you think it's been helpful to your community. And Dr. Artemis, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Kara.
And you can find more information on the cutting edge of wellness under Kara's Cures on my podcast and on WFSB Plus. You can go back. You can see other episodes with Dr. Artemis and other thought leaders about ways to be healthy and well. So we wish you a day of wellness. And you can also follow me on social media at Kara Sundlin. I like to share this content there. Have a great day and be well.